No gaming franchise lasts forever. I'm sure you can think of plenty of franchises off the top of your head that have come and gone. But what about the franchises that died and then they managed to come back to life? Somehow, they rose from the grave. We've talked plenty of times about games that killed their franchises, but what about the other side of the coin? What about the positive side? Welcome to Chaos Gaming. Today, we are going to be checking out 10 video games that saved their franchise. You guys be sure to drop a like. Let me know in the comments which of these gaming revivals was your favorite, and away we go. This month's giveaway is for your choice of a PS5 or an Xbox Series X. All you have to do to enter is drop a like, make sure you're subscribed, and leave a comment with your Twitter handle so we can get hold of you telling me which one you want. The winner is picked at the end of the month. Good luck. Let's start off with Crash N-SANE Trilogy. Now this may seem like a weird pick, but stay with me here, okay? Crash Bandicoot was one of Sony's mascots back in the 90s, and it put Naughty Dog on the map in a huge way. However, after Naughty Dog left the series in '99, the quality became extremely hit or miss. Quality dipped, sales dropped, and after 2010, the series went on a 7-year hiatus. However, in 2017, Activision took a gamble on the N-SANE trilogy, which was a full remake of the original 3 games on the PS1, and it was a banger. Not only with the older gamers reliving the memories, but the new ones who never experienced Crash back in the day enjoyed it. The N-SANE trilogy sold over 10 million copies. Thanks to its success, Activision went forward with 2 new games, Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled and the long-awaited Crash Bandicoot 4, which launched earlier this month. I think it's safe to say that Crash Bandicoot is back, and it was all thanks to the success of the N-SANE trilogy. Next up is Tomb Raider 2013. Now, Tomb Raider is another character who was an icon in the 90s, but then struggled to make the transition to the 2000s. Tomb Raider 1 and 2 were critically acclaimed and helped establish the action-adventure genre as we know it. But starting with Tomb Raider 3, it got a little rough. It all culminated with the Angel of Darkness in 2003, which was a massive letdown, and it kind of killed the series for a while. Then there were a few attempted revivals throughout the 2000s, but nothing stuck. However, in 2013, Square Enix took a stab at completely reimagining Tomb Raider as a mature, realistic adventure story with detailed gameplay, a very gritty vibe, and many elements shamelessly borrowed from the Uncharted franchise. The 2013 Tomb Raider, it was a success, and it led to the revitalization of the franchise as a whole, and since then, there have been a few more Tomb Raider games in the new universe, and Lara Croft has been doing quite well. So thank goodness, Square Enix took a gamble on the reboot, because dark, gritty reboots of the 90s games, they don't always go so well. At number 8, Alien Isolation. Now, it's a little early to say if the Alien franchise has been revived in the world of video games, but I think Alien Isolation played a huge part in washing the taste of Colonial Marines out of everybody's mouth. Following Colonial Marines and the disappointing AVP 2010, the Alien franchise seemed dead in the gaming world, but then it was turned on its head in 2014 when Sega released a survival horror game heavily inspired by the first movie in the franchise. Alien Isolation is a very slow, atmospheric game that scared the pants off everybody who played it, and the AI for the xenomorph that stalked you around your ship, well, some of the best we've ever seen, honestly, in gaming. It's been 6 years. We're still waiting on a true sequel to Alien Isolation, but it's definitely been established that the Alien license can live on. At number 7, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, 2020. Tony Hawk used to be one of the biggest faces of sports games. The original Pro Skater games were massive, and they helped garner thousands of people into skateboarding in general back in the early 2000s. However, the series fell off as it failed to adapt with the times, and it all fell apart with Tony Hawk Ride and the disastrous Pro Skater 5. I do not think anybody expected a full remake of the first 2 Pro Skater games to come out in 2020, but I'm glad it did. Pro Skater 1 and 2 is a faithful recreation of the original games in the Unreal Engine 4, along with some mechanics of the later games thrown in there for the quality of life, like additional skaters and movement mechanics. Pro Skater 1 and 2 launched in September of 2020. It was great. Sold over 1 million copies in the first 2 weeks on the market, which also made it the fastest selling game in the series. Now, it's a little early to tell just how much Activision is going to capitalize on Tony Hawk's revival, but don't be shocked if we get Pro Skater 3 and 4 remakes or possibly even a brand new game. Next up is Wolfenstein: The New Order. Now, Wolfenstein 3D is one of the most influential games of all time, with many calling it the true grandfather of first-person shooters. However, the series struggled through the 90s and the 2000s. It just couldn't keep up with the growing competition. Thankfully, 2014 revived the series in a huge way with The New Order, which was a single-player, story-driven FPS that blended old-school elements with more modern ones. The New Order was praised for its gameplay and storytelling, and it kicked off the new Wolfenstein series that unfortunately, well, it may have gotten killed by sequels, but it was going good. We're going to have to wait and see if Bethesda and Microsoft, what they do with the license. It's kind of a sticky situation right now, but we'll see. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019. It is no secret that COD has been struggling in the recent years. Following the transition to the 8th console gen, the games were extremely hit or miss and the sales overall took a hit. Modern Warfare was meant to be a way to bring the old school players back in, and yes, there was problems with the game. Nobody's going to deny that, but it was a huge success. The graphics were amazing. The sound design and attention to detail is great. The shooting feels good, and the multiplayer is being heavily criticized, but the Warzone mode made up for it, and the campaign was phenomenal. According to Activision, Modern Warfare is the most successful Call of Duty title ever released, so I think it's safe to say that despite all its faults, Modern Warfare saved Call of Duty from its downward spiral. Now we just have to wait and see what Black Ops Cold War can do and maybe keep the train rolling. At number 4, Resident Evil 6. This is another series that started off super strong, but then it took a dramatic dip after a while. 1 through 4 are some of the best horror games ever made, but starting with 5, things got dicey. Capcom started taking things in a more action-oriented direction with RE5, and there was just, I don't know, it was a dip in quality. RE6 was heavily criticized for its lack of polish and its nonsense story, and then there was the horrendous spin-offs like Operation Raccoon City and Umbrella Corps. Now the series needed a revival, and that came in the form of RE7. It was a complete rework of the formula. The gameplay was shifted to first person, the action was turned down, the horror was cranked up, and the story was built to stand alone rather than be involved with the weird plots and side plots of previous entries. RE7 was a huge success. Many called it one of the best games of the year, and I'm excited for RE8. I think it's going to be good. Okay, some fighting love. Mortal Kombat 9. One of the kings of the arcade fighters back in the 90s, but once the 2000s came around, it struggled. Some of the entries were good, some were bad, and almost all attempted spin-offs which were horrible. The series needed a full return to form, and that is where MK9 came in. Released in 2011, it was the first in the series to be developed by NetherRealms, and it brought everything back to the basics. The combat was made closer to the original arcade games, the gore was cranked up to 9,000, and the character roster was huge. Mortal Kombat 9 also had a great DLC model for characters that helped keep it alive for years to come, and it kicked off the rebooted MK universe that we all love right now. MK9 was a huge success, both for the franchise and for fighting games as a whole. At number 2, Halo Master Chief The Collection. Now, when this collection came out, it was horrible. People were worried about Halo dialing, and the original version of the MCC just put a nail in the coffin. However, in the last couple of years, the game has seen a huge resurgence, and it's now one of the most popular games in the Microsoft library. Not only did 343 Industries finally fix up the game on Xbox, but they also ported it to PC, which brought a ton of new and old Halo players into the mix. A lot of the hype surrounding Halo Infinite is from the fun that people are having with the classic Halos through the Master Chief Collection. Now, I think it was unacceptable to launch the game in the state they did, but now that it's fixed, it's good. It's shown that Microsoft is indeed committed to reviving the Halo franchise and expanding the community through ports. I'm worried about Halo Infinite, but hopefully it'll all work out. And finally, I think it's safe to say Doom 2016 saved the Doom franchise. One of the most influential FPS games of the last few years, it was a complete revival from one of the genre's founders. Doom dominated the 90s. It's practically inventing the modern FPS template starting in the 90s. Then it started to struggle. Bad ports, weird spin-offs, and then the very polarizing Doom 3, which was a really good game, but it just wasn't Doom. Doom 4 was stuck in development for a decade until ID Software said screw it, and they restarted from the ground up. Doom 2016 embraced its old school roots, fast-paced, push-forward action, blood, gore, heavy metal, tons of guns for you to use. It was one of the best games of the year, and it helped popularize old school shooters designed in the modern era. Plus, it put the Doom franchise back on the map in a huge way. And there you have it. Those are actual games that saved their gaming franchise. You let me know one that didn't make the list that was deserving. Check out the screen right now, guys. Check out the playlist and check out the most recent video, and I'll see you guys over there.